Hey everyone, and welcome to another Game Explained discussion. I'm your host, Derek Bittner, and I'm joined today by Joe Merrick of Serebii.net to discuss the Pokémon Generations Episode 11, The New World. So, how'd you like this look at Team Galactic and the showdown with Giratina?
I think it was pretty cool. We got to see a lot of cool stuff, but the thing that bugs me is that this is all stuff that we've seen, really.
Yeah, I guess that is the case. I mean, I told you before, like when we were setting this whole discussion up, that I've actually never played Platinum. I started up and got maybe to the second gym, and I just sort of stopped. And I don't know why. One of those things where I just kind of stopped, and it's like, all right, well, it's kind of different, but it wasn't enough for me to like go through all of Diamond and Pearl again. So I for whatever reason, I just stopped. So I wasn't quite familiar with the whole events going on. So the first time I watched it, I was actually kind of like, well, that was a thing. So it didn't really leave much of an impression on me.
Well, I guess that's part of the situation when you've got Pokémon Generations celebrating 20 years. If you missed a generation and you see this, you'd be like, what's this? Because this is a series which is, well, fun. It's playing on the nostalgia card pretty hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is the first time I've experienced one where I've been like, I think if I was just a little bit more familiar, because I have not played Gen 4 since college, and it doesn't have that childhood memories sticking with me, I think I would have enjoyed this more. Now, granted, I did watch it a second time. I just sort of refreshed myself, and I did enjoy it better that time. I got a better sense of what was going on. Cyrus is fascinating as a villain.
Well, Cyrus is crazy.
Yeah. He's definitely crazy, but he actually gets what he wants.
Yeah, and you can't really say that about any of the other villains. I mean, Archie and Maxie kind of do, briefly, but it never comes to fruition. Lysander's just insane. Getsis is just mental. There's a running theme here. Yeah,
a little bit of insanity. I mean, it's kind of, understandable since it's they're all trying to end the world. So it's a little something else. I will say probably my favorite moment of this entire episode, though, was Giratina's introduction. Just it rising up from the ooze like that, it all dripping off him, not even becoming really visible until they go back to the Distortion World. It was just a really cool introduction to that Pokemon.
Yeah, I was very impressed with the visual effect of that, because when Giratina comes out in the Distortion World in Pokemon Platinum, it is somewhat similar, but it's more like ghostly rather than oozy. But I really like the way that this was done. It looks really, really cool. You're seeing a lot of cool animation techniques in Pokémon Generations. That makes me very happy.
Yeah. No, it was nice. We didn't, not a lot of action, but just a good, introduction. And it's kind of funny how the Palkia and Dialga didn't really take revenge on Cyrus at all. They were just like, oh, we're free. Oh, I'm out. And then Giratina takes care of them, and that was that. It was actually kind of funny how almost useless Cynthia was. Like, she shows up, hey, stop, and then Giratina shows up.
I never really thought of it like that.
Yeah. For whatever reason, Cynthia never really stuck out of my mind as a champion. I don't know why, but she never really did it. It was always, for a long time, it took me a while. I was like, what was Cynthia from again? And then people were like, oh, Gen 4. Oh, okay. And I'm watching this like, okay, let's see Cynthia be badass. She has her Garchomp with her. Let's see her do something. And nothing.
Nothing.
So.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate.
Just a bit. But to be fair, I don't think the Glameow and the Skuntank would have done much.
True enough, but you never know. Maybe they have secret Z moves.
That could be. That could be. But what else stood out about the episode to you? Did you like the representation of the Distortion World? Was it pretty accurate to the games?
It was fairly accurate, but it seemed a bit too purple. Like, when you go into the games, it's very more dark blue. Mm-hmm. And it just struck me as a bit off. But I liked it. It shows everything at different angles. It would have been nice if you could see Cyrus moving about it, just to help further accentuate the fact that this is a universe where everything is crazy. Which is exactly what he wants.
I mean, it's kind of cliche, but just the whole thing of him getting up and standing up, and you pull out the camera and he's actually standing like horizontally to the ground.
That would work perfectly.
Yeah. It's just sort of a standard shot, but it would emphasize just how off this world is. And I mean, it's an interesting character study. I think I would have enjoyed this episode a little bit more, even as somebody is not familiar with the material, if they had focused a little bit more on Cyrus and his just really desire to be in a nothing world, which he does obtain, which would have been even more interesting. Granted, we only have 4.5 minutes to work with, but wishes.
Yeah, and that's just really the issue with Generations. It's like you always want to see a bit more. You want to see the build-up to whatever's going on in it. And it's quite unfortunate. Sometimes they hit the mark on the nose. It's brilliant, like with Cheryl in the old chateau, because that was just terrifying. But others like this, and Blue was going through the league. It's like you wanted to see more.
Yeah, it was one of those things where you could look at the outline that they have and think, well, I could easily make that a half hour. Like, they could, I could easily see how they extend that out by giving more backstory to Cyrus, giving you a better idea of what his whole thing was, and then having Cynthia take on Palkia and Dialga with her Garchomp and trying to hang on there with her team, and then Giratina showing up and finishing it all off. So they easily could have extended that to a half hour, but again, we're working with shorts here, so it's understandable. I'm just, that whole desire to want more.
Yeah.
The funny thing is like the side characters didn't really stand out that much to me. Like their outfits did, but I was like, what were their names again? I could never remember. I was like, they made no effort to do that for you.
Well, yeah, as I said, it's really playing with nostalgia card. They expect you to know what's going on, to know who's who, what their motivations are. So if you're not familiar with that generation, you're a bit lost. Like next week with Buck and Heatran, well, this week, a lot of people are going to be like, who on earth is that? Because they might not have gotten to the post-game bit where you meet Buck in Stark Mountain. So it's really playing on the nostalgia and the knowledge that people may or may not have.
Yeah, I think that's probably been the most apparent to me for this one. It's actually, it makes sense since, this is a post-game encounter with Heatran, but it does seem weird to end off Sinnoh with catching a Heatran or fighting a Heatran, Yeah. We have Distortion World, Giratina, Dialga, Palkia, this huge thing in the middle. And then we end Sinnoh with, hey, let's try to get Heatran.
Yeah.
Is Heatran even that important of a Pokemon? Is it a legendary? I'm not even sure. It just felt so simple.
I mean, it's technically a legendary, but it can be both genders. And strangely, in an episode of, I think it was Diamond and Pearl, the anime, there was a random trainer in the background with a Heatran.
Oh.
And people were like, what on earth is going on? Why does he have a Heatran? They're expecting them to, appear, maybe face Tobias, because Tobias had his Darkrai. But no, nothing came from that. It was just a random person with a Heatran, just like you'd find a random person with, a Sudowoodo.
Huh. It's kind of funny, so it's like the most non-legendary legendary.
Yeah, that's probably a safe thing to say about it.
But it's getting its own episode, so who knows? Maybe this will increase Heatran's stock. Honestly, I really don't have that much else to say about this episode. What about you, Joe? Do you have anything else that crossed your mind as you were watching it?
No, not really, just that it was a bit standard. It was something which we knew happened, something which we saw happen in the games. I prefer the Pokemon Generation episodes, which are completely different.
Yeah. And at the very least, I hope for this final episode, we do get at least a hint of the trainers from Diamond and Pearl, just because, we've seen hints of the others, so hopefully we get an idea of what those guys are doing, or at least see them around. We'll see.
Yeah.
But alright, I think that covers it for our Pokemon Generations discussion, so thank you for watching, and if you like this video, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. And Joe, where can they find you at?
They can find me on Serebii.net or on Twitter at Merrick and at SerebiiNet.
Awesome. And of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for more on Pokemon and other things gaming too. Until next time, bye.